In this lesson, we're going to learn how we can use the retiming feature in RealFlow. Okay, so really like the name suggests, this retimer feature is a good way of adding basically these time warping effects to our simulation, so we can start to go from slow motion effects to sped up motion without really having to worry about re-simulating and trying to get everything looking just right within our simulation. So essentially what we start with is just our standard animation. So I've got just a little preview here. So you can see I have this shatter effect, very similar to what we set up in our previous lesson. So what I'd like to do is now come in and add a little bit more of a slow motion effect right where this explosion actually happens. So kind of slowing that down and then kind of transition back out into a faster motion. Now, in previous versions of RealFlow, this would have been very, very difficult to set up. We would have had to gone through and actually reworked our simulations. It would have been a very, very tedious, very, very time-consuming process. Now with this retimer tool, this becomes very, very fast and very, very easy. So the first thing we need to do is just come in and essentially just start by selecting our retimer. So without really having to worry about having anything selected, let's just go up to Retime Simulation. Now up here we have our main timeline. So as we're playing through, this is comparing what our new adjusted time frame is compared to the original time frame. You can see right now they're exactly the same because we really haven't done anything at all to change the timing at the moment. Okay, now before we actually get into this, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and make yourself a video preview of your scene here. So let's start by maybe just taking this. I'll set this to a flat shaded so it's a little bit easier for us to actually see. And let's come in and just do, again, a quick video preview. All right, there we are. So all we need to do is have this in place because this will make it much, much easier for us to actually test our retiming functions before we actually run that on our new simulation. So again, we'll go back to our retime simulation. Let's start by going into our Try on Movie Player. Once we have actually made our video preview, we should actually have something here in this Frames folder. So let's just start by clicking on that. And what I'd like to do is just start by finding out where I actually want this slow motion effect to start. So in my case, looks like roughly about frame 35. That's pretty much where my explosion starts. And kind of transitioning back out into a normal speed, maybe roughly around frame 60 or so. So that's really kind of the section of time that I'd like to be able to slow down. Now, with that in mind, we can actually begin this process by going into our time function, and let's go into Edit Function. Now, press and hold the Alt key on my keyboard and use my right mouse button to come in here and retime this, or scale in and out. So we have our timeline, so this is from about frame 0 to frame 130 in my case. Now, before I get in here and start to adjust this curve, here's something that is going to be really, really important for actually getting this back. What I'm going to do is try to move to about frame 130, just moving my cursor and looking at this timeline here, so about frame 130. And what I'm doing is looking at these basically the Y values. So just seeing just where these values are. So in my case, it looks like around frame 130. We're at about frame, or a value of 4.32. Again, just looking at this value right up here. So somewhere between 4.4 and 4.3. Okay, so we're going to have to remember that. Now, right now with this setup, we're using basically an expression to just drive this linear through time. Now what I'd like to do is get in here and start to work with this timeline a little bit more interactively. So let's start by coming in here and just deleting this expression. So that will completely clear this out and leaves us with no effect whatsoever. Now I'll go ahead and build my own curve by just clicking down here anywhere. And let's start by selecting the proper value. So I'll set my frame to 0 and set my value to 0 as well. So make sure that's zeroed out. I'll go ahead and just add one down here as well. And now just type in the value randomly. So I'll set this to be at frame 130. And again, if you recall, we're looking for a value of between 4.3 and 4.4 for the Y value. Okay, now let's just come in and make sure that we actually understand what has just happened. So by doing this, we've come in and now made our own curve. But what I want to do is make sure that basically the start and the end is progressing at pretty much the same rate as our original animation. Now to test this, if I press OK, and now look at our timing example, you can see my output frame is 74, original frame is 73. So I'm pretty much spot on as far as making sure that the timing has not been altered so far. So now that I can have this in place, now I can start to come in and really start to rework the timing of this. So again, press and hold the Alt key on my keyboard, use my right click and my middle click to kind of move around in here. Now, if you recall, I mentioned that around frame 35 is where I wanted this slowdown to start. So again, watching my frame up here, go ahead and move my cursor to around frame 35. There we are, and now I'll just double click. And I also wanted this to stop around frame 60, so I'll double click there as well. So now, this is where some of the fun starts, because we can start to come in here and now just start to take some of these keyframes, maybe come in here and set these to more of a Bezier so we can actually start to retime these. And I'll do the same over here as well, so I'll set that to a Bezier. And with both of these active, or I'll select both of these, and I'll break the tangents on both of those, so that way I can actually move both of these handles independently. So really, if we want our timeline to start to slow down, we can start to take certain segments of time and begin kind of flattening those out. So what we should see is now we have our time that progresses up to a certain point and then really starts to slow down and then should start to ramp back up. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Again, we can come through here and play. We can get an idea of just where this slowdown is going to happen. Now to actually see this effect, we can come in and try on Movie Player. Once again, select our frames, let this load up, and now you can see we get basically a preview of where this is going to happen. So we can get an idea of, is the timing happening in the proper place? Is the slowdown lasting as long as we want? So in my case, my slowdown starts well enough, but really there's a very gradual transition from our sped up time back into our original. There's really not that quick snap. So let's try to fix that up. Go back into our edit functions. And again, with this handle up here, let's go ahead and grab that, maybe pop that up a little bit higher. That should start to result in a much more substantial jump. I'll maybe do the same over here. So maybe slope that down. Maybe flatten that out as well. So let's come in here and again just flatten that out. So now we should have some really substantial jumps in our time. So again, select this, try on Movie Player. There we go. That's starting to get a little bit better. So now you can see we have this really abrupt change in our time. So this nice slow explosion and then back out again. So let's maybe come in here and extend that a little bit longer. And again, try on Movie Player. So it's really just this process of coming in here and reworking some of these things until you just find really just what you like. So again, at this point now this is looking pretty close to what I would imagine my final animation would need to be. So once I have this preview, now I can simply go in and choose Retime. Now RealFlow is going to go in and re-simulate that and retime that. Now if I actually come here into my timeline and start to scrub through, we shouldn't really notice any difference in our animation. It should look exactly the same as it did before. However, whenever we go into this retime option, we do have these input and output settings. And we'll explain these a little bit more as we start to get into our actual export central here in one of our later lessons. But essentially what has happened is that RealFlow has taken this fractured cross and it's actually written out a new version of this animation, but it's named it Retimed. So if I were to go into the project folder for this lesson 16, if we take a look inside the objects directory, you see here's our animation, and here's our animation retimed. Now this SD file could be brought back into our primary 3D application, whether that be Maya, Max, Softimage, or whatever the case may be. So by bringing that in, if we were to go into something like Maya, for example, go to File, Import, and again, I'll go into my Lesson 16 Start, go into Objects, and I'll grab this animation retimed. Go ahead and import that in. You can see Maya will go ahead and bring that in. And let's make sure that my timeline is extended to the proper duration. I'm going to set that to a shaded view. And now if I were to scrub through here, you can see here's our new slowed down animation. I should be able to come in here and just play this back. So let that play through. There's our nice new slowed down animation. And really we can use these retiming effects on just about anything. We're not necessarily limited to just doing this on something like our rigid bodies. So we could actually come in and start to retime things like our fluids, our soft body simulations, splashes, whatever the case may be. And you can see that once you get the hang of it, this becomes a very, very fast, very easy way of getting these really, really nice time warping effects within RealFlow.